All right. So we are back and we are back with Daryl from Lexis Nexis Risk Solution. We've heard previously about from Mike Breslin. So welcome, Daryl. And before we go into a little bit about the tribal community or the community around Native American of what you do with
All right.
Lexis Nexis, I would love to get an idea of how you got to Lexis Nexis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the work that you do there specifically.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I'm happy to be here and talk about this. I think it's an important topic. I started with Lexis over 20 years ago when I was on the commercial side of our business and got a chance to interview with on the government team. And I thought, living in Washington, you either work for the federal government or you work for a company that supports the federal government. And so it was a great opportunity and ended up getting into the law enforcement space, which has been a great thing. I had a lot of friends in law enforcement and kind of wish I'd done that. And so this was my opportunity to kind of give back to that community. But I'm glad we're here and glad this is a fun conference and
it seems like Lexis Nexis as a whole, as an organization, its motto is to really help and give back. And I guess you're specifically part of the risk solution section, right?
Correct.
And the public safety
Right.
aspect, which focuses purely on law enforcement or public safety, should I say?
Absolutely. So I'm our director of business development for our federal public safety practice. So I handle all the, think DHS, DOJ, and all the components that go underneath of all those. So, and that's initially how I got started a few years ago on missing, murder, indigenous persons, women. We were calling them MIW at the time, but it's learning more that's not just women. It's obviously a lot of males too. So
yeah, and that's great. And I think one of the things we talked, as I said to Mike, about the Adam program, but I know LexisNexis is a big company and there's a lot of different programs around there. And your focus is a lot about the Native American community in the US.
Right.
And working with them specifically on missing persons, correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of people that want to go missing, right? So not to quote Lord of the Rings, but not all that wander are lost. And I've got a funny story I just learned a couple of weeks ago at a conference. There was a man that went missing in 1979, and they asked if hey, could you help us find him? We think he's still alive. And the man would have been in his 80s. And they're like, sure. Did you report this back then? And I'm like, no, but we need to now, So they ended up finding him in Northern California, alive and well, and just didn't want contact with his family, But and then you also have a lot of people that go missing and they're habitual missing and they come back. You got a lot of runaways, and a lot of those were with children. And that's obviously when you spoke with Mike Breslin about that and the Adam program. That's where we assist there, obviously on the minor side of things. So, but yeah, there's unique, just unbelievable challenges. And to say that I'm all knowledge of this, it's not at all. I mean, these tribal law enforcement or tribal areas are they're not monolithic. They do things differently. There's different approaches and how you interact. And so
they're all set up differently, but in the end, maybe this is maybe a little bit of a naive or stupid question. But I assume that each reservation or tribal land has an actual law enforcement entity.
Yeah, they sure do. And some are very small. And what I've learned is obviously, very resource constrained. Just not the manpower. I listened to a BIA presentation earlier, and they just don't have the bandwidth to do it all, and that's, some of the problems are, the inefficient data sharing, manpower issues, again, at this other conference, I talked to command staff for a large, tribal land area. Right. We're in a city that he said, there's 800 sworn in this city. Because I'm responsible for 6 counties here in Oklahoma. So you can imagine these counties got to be huge.
Yeah.
I have 26 officers.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I know when talking to other law enforcement officers in the US, what I was learning is always that on average, police force, there's 18,000 police agencies in the US, but on average, if you discount the big cities, on average, there's 4 people per agency. And you think, how is that possible? There's no way that they have the resources then. And I'm guessing it's even worse when we're talking about tribal land and reservations because they're big land
Sure.
with not a lot of people.
Yeah,
Uh,
and some of these folks, there might be one or two people on duty on a reservation that's the size of Rhode Island. They're
Yeah.
running priority. They got to
Mhm.
stop and get gas on the way. You know, so
So when looking at and learning about the tribal communities and Native American communities, what have you seen sort of the challenges other than I know lack of resources, lack of manpower, but are there things that are unique compared to, let's say, comparing it to the big cities like New York or Chicago or even here in Vegas?
yeah, I think some of it too is just awareness of what's out there and what are some
Hmm.
of the tools that are available to them and how to get access to it or funding
Hmm.
for it. Lots of grants out there, but is that grant money getting funneled down to them?
Right.
Can they apply in time? But every federal law enforcement agency uses our tools. We're an information analytics company
Yeah.
for good. I mean, we're solving crimes, we catch bad people, we stop fraud, and we allow equitable access to government programs. I concentrate mostly on the bad people aspect of it and helping them provide tools and solutions to help locate
Mm.
individuals, understand assets, things of that nature,
Okay.
relatives, associates, phone numbers, uh, cell tracking,
Yeah.
just all for investigative purposes. And again, every federal agency has access to these. We have almost 5,000 state and local agencies that also have access to this. So it makes perfect sense for tribal law enforcement to have access to the same tools
Absolutely.
and absolutely be able to share their information back and forth
Yeah.
with federal and state and locals that are near their jurisdiction.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's our goal, and that's what we've been working on.
And how do you reach out? I mean, I know there's hundreds of different tribes and native reservations out in here in the US. How do you sort of tackle one by one and build their relationship and do training?
Well, so this conference that I was at just recently in Oklahoma, and that seems to be kind of the epicenter of what's going on right now, just for
Mhm.
me, for what I'm working on. But yeah, can you imagine there's 574 actually, and under 200 under BIA control. So um, that would be a pretty arduous task to go one by one by
Yeah,
one. So
exactly.
we're going to work on a consortium of 5 different tribal law enforcement agencies
Okay.
in Oklahoma. And actually, we're looking to get there at the beginning of May
Hmm.
and try to show how this can be the gold standard for the rest of the country,
Mhm.
and how this could be all the utility that,
Hmm.
and help solve not only backlog of cases, but moving forward, getting more of that exigent case assistance that they need. We've also got our own people on staff that we call our SIU group, our Special Investigative Unit. They're all comprised of former agents, analysts. They're at their disposal as well. So, we know our data, we know it well, and these are folks that have been, again, years of law
Yeah.
enforcement experience. So,
And that's the thing, it's having a structure in place, having a practice in place so that when something happens, they know what to do or where to go to.
right.
Right. So it's building awareness and education about your resources, but you also mentioned about the funding aspect. So technology always costs. We know this.
Sure.
It's gotten less depending on the technology from 10 years ago. But where do people look for those funding? Is that DOJ, Department of Justice?
OJP, there's so many different grant things out there, and a lot of grant programs. And, we have folks on staff that really understand. And one of my
Mhm.
coworkers I work closely with, um, very versed in grant writing
Writing.
and how that works. And, maybe can we point to some of these different funding
Mhm.
sources so they can
Mhm.
do it. And, they come open. I sat in a presentation here with the COPS program down here. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of money out there, and it's just, getting to it, applying for it.
Okay.
And then,
So can the tribal communities come to you to ask to help for writing the proposals
absolutely.
and sort of partner with you, essentially saying, don't write the proposal for me, but
Yeah, yeah. Well,
partner.
if we can insert like our solutions and where we think we are,
Yeah.
basically it is almost kind of written in a way that all they have to do is just, obviously review it. They're gonna have
Mhm.
their own review process, and then,
Mhm.
sign off on it and get it sent in and get it sent in on time.
Yeah.
And, so, um, that's a
Okay.
resource that we're gonna.
How is it best for them to reach out to you? Is there a website to be able to say, okay, this is where you need to go to find all of the information?
You know,
Or is
yeah,
it all over the place?
yeah, it's a little
All
all over
over
the
the
place,
place.
but you're touching on something because I thought about that earlier. That, we probably need to, because we're gotten more than our toe in the water at this
Yeah.
point. I think, I think I'll work with folks to make sure that maybe they have, you know, a direct
Mhm.
a phone number to me, or to our program,
Yeah.
and what we're trying to do, and,
Okay.
and kind of build that up a little better,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. I mean, that always takes time, especially with new programs. You sort of figure out things. And that's also one of the reasons why we have you here so that you can talk a little bit more about the work, but also reach out to the travel community, the participants that are here,
Absolutely.
which is really great because I do feel that they are in need of not only the resources, but the knowledge, the expertise,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I'm looking at this too, also more as also a three-pronged approach too, because it's not just obviously, and I think these all go hand in hand. You've got missing, murdered people.
Mm-hmm.
You've got drug related issues that are just rampant.
Yes.
And you have human trafficking
Yep.
issues, and it all kind of ties in. And learning some just amazing stats that are just mind-boggling, especially with the fentanyl crisis. 1,100% increase of
Wow.
fentanyl powder seized last year alone from the year before
Wow. And that's across the US.
across the U.S. It's just,
Yeah.
it's out of control. And, and a lot of the cartels and such are preying on, and like in Montana, I think,
Vulnerable communities.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they're paying more for it,
Yeah.
border cities that's pennies on the dollar for it. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there they can make more money. So
And I get that's what and you pinpointed quite good things. It's three-pronged. It's not just the missing persons or people who are willing to go missing or just disappear,
Right.
right? But it's the drug related issues, the crime related, but it's not just always crime. It's alcoholism, it's joblessness,
absolutely.
it's other aspects that contribute to the bigger picture,
Right.
right?
No, very much so.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's always, I think that's what people have to realize with some of this, with the issue of missing, that it's not in silos,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
There's a contributing factor to this of why a person goes missing. Either something happened at home, something happens outside of the house, but there's always a contributing factor and it doesn't have to be criminal,
Right.
right?
It's, another thing too, it's just 4 out of 5 women, um, women and young females have seen violence
Mhm.
in their life.
Mhm.
That's 84%. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just crazy to me. And again, been working on this for 3 years. I'm learning new stuff every day.
Yeah.
I've never been, I don't think, as passionate about something because I know it's something that as a company,
Mhm.
it's the right thing to do. I've been on the Hill. We've worked with consultant in DC. Uh, Special shout out to Mike Andrews, been a great friend and a
Yeah.
resource to us. But I've been on both sides of the aisle, House, Senate side. They're all nodding their head.
Yeah.
We're had legislation introduced for grant funding for solutions like ours.
Mm.
Yeah, the time is now. We can help.
And that's fantastic. And I think the other thing that we talked earlier on with a couple of other guest speakers is the importance of collaboration,
Right.
right? So you collaborate with law enforcement because the tools that you provide is for law enforcement. But within the community of tribal community, I'm also guessing there's a lot of social workers, right?
Yeah.
So are you looking at bringing those into at least into the conversation, not bringing the solutions to them, but at least bringing them into education and awareness?
100%. And it, those conversations do need to happen,
Mhm.
so, um, yeah, because, obviously what you don't want to have is, a lot of the cases that we work on, and I don't think there's a case out there or national news or state and local news where there's an incident that somehow Lexis Nexis is probably involved, right?
Right.
But a lot of these things bring, they're more closure,
Yeah.
we're trying to get it before it gets to that point,
Yeah, yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and so, like I said, some people do want to go missing. Some people have ended up in a jail bed somewhere and they're not really missing,
Mhm.
but, I think leveraging tools like ours, they can get quicker, faster,
At least get
more
some
actionable.
answers,
Yeah,
right?
a lot faster than what's going on
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the important part. We always talk about how the time is of essence. So technology can help. You have great technology at Lexis Nexis that
absolutely.
is really time that can save time for law enforcement, in a lot of different ways, especially with the lack of manpower
Yeah.
and everything else. So that's really fantastic. So we'll definitely make sure that we put people in the right direction.
Right.
And you mentioned something just before we went live. Was it the 5th of May
Yeah, the
as
5th
being
of May.
Awareness Day?
Yeah, I just learned it's National Awareness Day for missing women and children, and so wear your
Okay.
bread, support,
Yeah,
and it's not only that, but it's Cinco de Mayo. So
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. There's also International Missing Children's Day, which is on May 25th.
yeah,
So month of May is sort of the day,
That's
the
it.
month a little bit, but definitely keep that in mind. The Cinco de Mayo or 5th of May
That's right.
as being the day for women and children. So I really appreciate it, Daryl. Is there anything before we sort of close? Is there anything that you wanted to mention that we haven't talked about?
No, again, we're learning a lot.
Yeah.
Learning on as a company. I'm bringing a lot of things back to the Hive, and
Okay.
I know that our CEO, who I know you've met with,
Yeah.
is super passionate about things like this, and
That's
his
awesome.
support of NECMEC and
Yeah.
the Adam program. So, we really want to get this off the ground and get it moving and get these
Great.
tools in the right
Well,
hands.
I definitely look forward to talking to you again in a year's time.
Yeah.
And seeing where you are with
Progress.
this, because I'd always love to see the developments and the changes. So
Yeah.
look forward to it. Thank you so much for supporting us as the podcast live
Yeah.
here in Vegas, and look forward to seeing what's happening next.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon, and have a few more conversations on the second day of the National